So we're going to be kicking off this afternoon with our panel discussion. And it's going to be focusing on synergy and resilience and managing digital expectations. I think this panel is going to be really interesting because a personalised and data-driven marketing strategy is now the expectations of any business. But before we start off, my name's Lou Nylander. I'm the founder of Wildflowers of London Marketing Consultancy. And I've got my esteemed panel here today, and I'm just going to let them all introduce themselves. So, Jensen, starting with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jensen Fung. I'm the Executive Vice President at EF Education First.
Perfect. Lorraine?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lorraine Floyd. I'm the Head of Strategic Marketing at ACOM, which is a global infrastructure consultancy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashima. I'm the Associate Director of Growth and Product Marketing at this dating app that you might have heard of called Bumble.
Awesome. So we're going to kick off. And the first question I've got for you guys is, what strategies do successful brands employ to personalise digital experience and meet individual customer needs? And Jensen, I'm going to come to you first.
Thank you. I think the first thing that everybody is going to say is to delight your users, because if you are not trying to delight your users, then why should you be doing any personalization, right? One thing that I experienced is whenever people think about personalization, people will think about, okay, I am going to understand my audience. I'm going to do exactly what they want. And we are going to have a master scheme. So we'll provide a well-designed journey, exactly what seconds they're going to get what, and then down to channel and down to all the messages, and everything is well designed. And there's a bunch of creepy guys sitting in the marketing room tailoring out all those messages. But if we take a step back and think about how do we delight our users, does that necessarily mean that they have to do things that we really want them to do? What if they actually don't want the personalization journey? So I can give an example. I was very impressed by Spotify. I'm sure everybody has Spotify on their phone. If you try to listen to one of your favorite albums, when you finish an album and they are going to start their recommendation, so you are going to hear something that Spotify thinks it is personalized for you, it is going to be similar to what you like, but they are slightly different. So once you start doing that, and then you can actually try in a bit, and then you hit skip, then Spotify would know you actually don't like this song. And the next song you're going to receive is actually going to be one of your most frequently played songs. And I tried it many, many times, and it always works. So what I learned from, and this company, obviously, they do personalization and recommendation the best in the world. So what I learned from here is when you are trying to tailor a personalization program or experience, you always need to think about a feedback loop to come back and review, okay, maybe what I'm doing is not what the customer wants. So another example I have is think about the retargeting ad that you see. So there is a lot of direct-to-consumer websites. You go there, and then afterwards, all your ads are going to be flooded by the retargeting content, and you just see these underpants or phone chargers 20 times everywhere.
I thought you went straight to underpants.
Yeah, because last time I was talking to one of my stakeholders, and we used that as an example.
Got you.
But the point is, why there is no diversity? What if I actually don't want underpants? So what if I actually want, oh, I shouldn't even start with this example, sorry. That sounds a little bit...
It's a great example there, carry on.
Sorry.
You've used it now.
I work in a private education company. I would like to talk more educated, and I'll try my best. So, so what about we introduce diversity? So what about they actually don't want this item, but they want something else under your inventory? So I think the first lesson we have learned in personalization is you have to always think about how do you delight your users. You have to think about giving them a feedback loop to tell you what you're doing is actually right or not right. And then the last bit is always introduce diversity, because otherwise you will bring your user into an echoing chamber, and then this is going to pollute your future data. And then moving on under your catalog, you're only selling underpants, and you fail to sell any other items. So I think that is the first thing. The second bullet I want to mention is about consistency. So wow, Spotify example, that is great, right? So everybody is like, okay, when I go home today, I'm going to try, Jensen, if this is going to work. And then if you try it on music, I'm pretty confident that it's going to work. But if you try it on podcasts, the function is not there. So here is a problem about personalization. Because when you try to delight your user lift their expectation, and then they will expect you to be consistently good in every single aspect. So, but clearly, podcasts and music are very different product in Spotify. So the experience will naturally be very different. But if we zoom back into marketing lens, I think with the help of Gen AI, all the organization, all your marketing managers and social media managers, they are super tempted to use ChatGPT to generate content, generate posts. So we will be hyper-personalized on the ad level. But let's say you pull it off correctly. And then on the landing page level, on all the subsequent communication, everything is still generic. So this is, once again, you fall into the trap that you only personalize part of your journey, and then you excite your customer, well done, social team, well done, advertising team, but then the entire system doesn't follow. And then that would lead to more disappointment. So for personalization, I would also think about that as a system. It is not just one asset. You need to hold your urge to jump your gun and personalize on one thing, but you would rather personalize for a whole journey for smaller group of users or smaller markets, and then you scale it out. So
Perfect.
consistency is my other points.
Awesome. That sounds really good. Lorraine, do you agree with Jensen on that?
I do. The area that I think is most exciting for us as marketers is we've been personalising our marketing strategies for years. Throughout my career, I have run teams that have ran personalised marketing strategy. That's what we do, right? Because we're targeting our audiences. But what the state of the possible is looking like for us as marketers is really exciting. And, you know, if you look at brands like Netflix, for example, yes, similar to Spotify, they're delivering you content that they think you're going to be interested in, but they're taking that beyond. Their creative. It's not just the content. So their ads that they share will be different for what will appear in my feed as will appear in my next door neighbour's feed. You know, that hyper-personalisation is extremely exciting, and that's what excites me in my role. The other piece that I think is really important as part of strategy when we look at this is how we integrate the art of that data into our strategies. And one thing that I'm working really hard with our teams on is that synergy piece. So use that data-driven insights that can help enhance that experience for your audiences, but marry that up too with the human element, that human insight that you've got to really optimize it. So for me, it's more of a case of a marriage and a synergy of the two to help deliver those strategies with the optimum output. And it's a win-win, right? So we're happy because we're targeting those that we want to be, and they're receiving the content, hopefully, in a broader feel of not just what the content is, but what it looks like, what it feels like, what our voice is like, in a personalised way. So it's a complex issue, but there are so many strategies. But for me, it's that piece around trying to pull out the strands that are going to make that experience for our audiences the best they can be.
Perfect. That makes a lot of sense. And Ashima, I mean, you work at Bumble, which is a dating website, so I'm sure you have a lot of human data.
I mean, you'll be surprised how many companies sit on huge amounts of data and absolutely don't know what the hell to do with it. So I think that's one of the key things in product, and a lot of companies and product-led companies, every single user interaction is a touch point. It is data that we can build on, we can think about. But I think for me, personalization, a lot of the different companies would go into it because it's the thing to do without fundamentally understanding what it would unlock for their business. And I think that is the biggest piece, which I think we do well within product and tech companies, where every single part of the customer journey is a goal and a business goal. And personalization is a means to that goal and not necessarily the end goal to get to.
Got you.
So I think that's one of the key things that we actually do well at Bumble. because I mean, technically dating is highly personalized, right? Who you're going to like in a partner. It has gender differences, it has cultural differences, there are demographic differences. So you really have to nail it down at a user level, both in terms of the product experience, but also in terms of marketing. And that's, I think, the second part that we want to come to. I think most organizations approach personalization in silos, where marketing goes and they're kind of personalizing messaging and channels, but at the same time, product is going and personalizing pricing and all of these in-app engagements and gamifications separately. And my role specifically at Bumble is actually to bring these worlds together to create a connected experience for the customer. And that's where the personalization can truly be an end-to-end customer journey, where who they're seeing within the platforms and the kind of people they want to meet within the platforms is connected to the kind of messaging that they're getting, all the way from onboarding to marketing campaigns to any other messaging that is coming to them. And one of the key ways or strategies, I think, which is fundamental to how product operates, is experimentation. There is no other way to do it, and more what we need to do is align this experimentation across both marketing channels and product journeys and really create that connected experience, which is like day 1 to day 7, or consumers who have churned and you're trying to bring them back and meet them at those life stages in that one narrative. And that's where you personalize the journey end to end for them. And that's, I think, a game changer for a lot of product-led companies. I mean, at this point, it's not even a game changer. It's something that we have to do to keep the customer.
Awesome. The hot topic of the day this morning, we were talking a lot about AI, and I think I've been to quite a few conferences in the last couple of weeks, and AI is seemingly to be a big topic that everybody wants to talk about, mainly because I think everyone's scared that it's coming for our jobs. But how can technology, AI, machine learning help brands to manage and exceed customer digital expectations? And Ashma, I'm going to come to you first on this one.
Yeah, it's the most fun part of conferences nowadays is talk about AI. So I'll
because you've got all the answers, right?
Exactly. It's just it's the cool kid on the block. So I'll come back again. Coming from dating, we've been using machine learning before it was even cool. The one thing that people understand that now, what's really truly been transformational now is generative AI, which is essentially those machine learning tools, training sets are able to interact with customers in a way that they can use language models to, create, text output. That is the main thing that has become the game changer now. But all this while, Bumble has been existing for the longest time, and we've been using machine learning models because that's what powers the engine. Powers the people recommendations engine, where we are recommending who, and that's based on all of these different data sets, and the algorithm is based on these models to understand who to target. Even from a safety perspective, machine learning is used to be able to flag potentially scam or fake profiles to be able to shut it down before it even interacts with the customer, right? So it's been happening in the kind of sidelines for the longest of time. It's just now it's sexy and now everyone wants to talk about it. But I do think with the language learning models and Gen AI specifically, it unlocks a lot of different opportunities of customer interaction for us. But I feel like it will still have to be built on top of your internal, machine learning algorithm. So one of the things that I'm working on with the machine learning team right now is building a next best action model of what is the step that we want to take with certain set of users. Should we push them to purchase premium? Should we push them to buy a complement? What is the best path from a payer propensity, from a retention, from an engagement standpoint for each of these users, and then using on top, Bumble is sitting on a lot of data, using that data to build the frameworks on that. So that's definitely one of the places where, AI was already there, but now we can build LLMs on top of that to make it a lot more seamless customer interaction. But also on the marketing side, we've started to really incorporate AI. It's pretty cool. We're actually testing. So we do push notifications for engagement, right? Don't hang in there. Keep swiping until you find your match, because we're trying to get people to keep retaining onto the platform. And we generate thousands and thousands of push notifications, which is manually done by a copywriter. And now I'm actually running an experiment to test. We have all the data in terms of performance of those push notifications. We fed that into machine learning model to see, LLM created push notifications based on that data outperform the ones written by our copywriters. And we'll see. I don't have the results yet, but we'll figure it out. But I think those are a lot of interesting applications of AI, even in marketing, or even how to improve the efficiency of the team instead of somebody sitting and writing hundreds of copies to actually seeing and testing it that performs and is relevant to that customer. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of it that we're already doing. It's just now there is a whole different paradigm that is unlocked because of just the interaction models that are available with LLM.
Awesome. It sounds like there's quite a level of experimentation that's still going on, even with the new models and bringing that in.
It's not a silver bullet.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And Jensen, what your thoughts on this matter?
Yeah, I think it's completely exciting, and Ashima, I'm 100% with you. It's not a silver bullet. Well, many people think it was. But before I start, I think maybe I can set the tone and put things in context a little bit. So my company, EF Education First, is a private education company. So you can imagine this company, half of our business is on study tours and sending kids outside of the UK, anywhere else for cultural experience. So we have one big component that is a tour operation company. The other half is a private education. We have corporate education and English education and app and stuff like that. So I think it's important when I quote some examples, we can put things in context. So now, jumping back, excuse me. Jumping back to the question, what does machine learning and AI does? So to me, the simplest way to look at that is machine learning help you to find help you to identify patterns and predict future in a large data set. So it empowers you as marketing leader to make more radical decisions. While the Gen AI, it empowers you to deliver your asset at scale. Indeed, I think a lot of the marketing summit I've been to this year, everyone talks about Gen AI. But the Gen AI getting more popular, basically I see that as a leveled battlefield. Because in the past, you need to be Bumble, you need to be Uber, you need to be Deliveroo to have this in-house asset. But right now, anyone have a Google account, they have access to ChatGPT. So basically, everyone is using the same thing. So imagine if that was Microsoft Office, you can be a little bit more productive than your colleague by learning some hotkeys, but your productivity band is pretty much there. So what is going to set large companies apart from each other is how you use your data to train your AI. So how do you have the capability to fine-tune the open source AI model and make it do things for you in your context? Because clearly, nobody has a capacity or the resources to build another open AI for your own company. That is just not humanly possible. So it circles back to the point. That is why I'm saying AI is not a silver bullet. It's a bullet that is accessible to everybody or most people, right? But the use of data and the use of experimentation, this is going to set your company apart. So when it comes to machine learning, like I said, it has been, if you ask the scientists, data scientists in my team, they're going to tell you, oh, these are just regression. That has been there for the past 100 years in science, so it's nothing new. It's a matter of use cases. So you can use machine learning to build simple prediction model. You can find cause and effects. So all these are very important to empower the use of AI. So I'm going to wrap up with one tangible example about personalization. So let's say you are sitting on a wealth of user data. What you need to do to create, so maybe the use cases. So let's identify how do we find the best converting user segments. So first, you use machine learning, create user clustering, you find those people. And then you can use generative AI to create your assets and do your personalization. You launch it, you test it, you measure it with proper experimentation. So apart from A/B tests, there's a lot of other experimentation, synthetic control, LTC, lift test, whatever. So build your experimentation, and then you go back and refine your personalization. So if I'm to wrap up, machine learning is going to empower you to do more radical decisions. AI is going to be the user-facing interface that's your personalization is going to happen and it's going to be 10x.
Perfect, thank you, Jensen. And Lorraine, from your perspective, how are you using sort of AI and machine learning in your day-to-day job? And if you've got any examples, that would be great.
Yeah, so At ACOM, we are at the beginning, really, of our journey of testing machine learning and AI in within our marketing teams. What I would say is, from my experience, is that we are using it to augment. We are not solely reliable on it, and where we found it most useful is when we're trying to execute diversification strategies. So entering new markets is where we have found that insight to be particularly valuable. As a marketing team within ACOM, we work hand in hand with our client account teams, and that insight that they can give us and those relationships they have with our clients, I never want to be sat in a conference where I hear that, you know, AI is a replacement for that. It absolutely isn't. And within our business, we want to be trusted partners with our clients. So the AI piece is an augmentation. It's not something that we are looking to embed within everything. So, for example, at the moment, we're running it as a test in the development of content strategy for a new campaign in a market that our brand, we have brand presence in, but we're probably not the go-to. So that's where we're starting to use it for insights to augment those gaps that we have within the business around which channels should we be using, which preferences will those audiences have, how do they engage, who influences them. So it's a really interesting space at the moment with ACOM to gather those insights. And I'll have to come back to you on the success of it, but we've certainly learned a lot along the way in terms of what machine learning and AI can bring to the table. And the business is really engaged in that too. They're interested in finding out what insights we can uncover and unlock for them to help drive an effective marketing strategy.
Perfect, thank you for that. And we talked to it, I don't know, for those that were in my session this morning, we had WPP come in and they were talking about creativity and AI, and they were also talking about how they've had to sort of nurture their teams and sort of restructure and educate their clients about how to utilise, when to use it, when to, the terminology that they used was augment the person, and then when to automate the process. How are you guys sort of nurturing your team and your talent in order to sort of take advantage of utilising data in your strategies or new technologies? And Lorraine, I'll come to you first on that one.
Yeah, so I think we've all seen, and it's always been part of, data has been part of a marketeer's job inherently. Well, it should kind of be always, and it's becoming a skill that we're looking to see evidence of, particularly when we're recruiting new team members.
Yeah.
I think something we need to be cognizant of as well is that, you know, for some, data isn't a core skill, and something I'm very conscious of is looking at the team as a whole, looking at the skills that we've got, and kind of mapping, okay, well, that person actually really loves working with this data and this insight and analysing that, whereas this person would be better in the utilisation of that data to roll out. So what I would say there is, yes, we all need to embrace this, and we need to upskill and have that knowledge and awareness of what the art of the possible is and how that can help us in our jobs. But we should also be cognizant that we still need other skills, so we don't have to force everyone down this. I think there's this, you know, it becomes a thing, doesn't it? And I think there are so many skills that we need across Marcom's roles, and we should harness those. So I'm very cognizant of that in particular. The other piece I would say is that, you know, retention as well, I think is just as important. I think there's a big fear, actually, that, you know, what is this going to open up? And again, it's that human element. So it's that narrative, I think, that we need to be having with our businesses of, we understand the art of this, we understand what it can bring and the value it can drive, but this is how we're going to utilise that within our teams, and this is what the outcome will be. So I think there's a big transition period there as well about how we talk about how we use these technologies and how they can enhance what our teams already do.
Perfect. Ashma, I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, with my team, I can like keep throwing all these tech jargons that we kind of live, breathe by, like, you know, ship things and, you know, break things and fail fast and all of that, which are like core values in tech that we operate in, and that whole culture of experimentation, etc., that I was talking about. But I think, this is my personal opinion, that the way I've always worked in tech, and it is always going to be an ever-evolving landscape. Today we're talking about AI. Tomorrow, Web3 is going to make its way back, and metaverse is going to be cool. And it's just constantly changing. We've come through a world from no internet to web to Web 2 to now Web 3 and then mobile and e-commerce. So I feel if you're building teams that you're not optimizing for output right now, but teams that are successful now and in the future, you are really trying to build flexibility and the ability for those teams to adapt and evolve to a changing landscape. And that's what it is at the core of it, right? Some fundamentals will never change. You will have to champion the voice of the customer and align that with business goals. That is a fundamental skill, no matter how the business and the technology landscape evolves. The channels will change. Now you're optimizing, you'll do machine learning from just static channels or RFP models, all of that. That can be learned and unlearned as you go through the process. But I think the skill for marketers and the value that we bring to a lot of these companies is voicing those insights for the customer and aligning that with business goals. So I will still keep that as the fundamental focus for my teams without the noise and distraction of the changing technologies, because that you will always have to adapt and learn based on what is going on in the market at that point. So I look at it a little bit differently because I think success for teams is always dependent on their fundamentals and how they can align those skill sets with the core goals of the business, but then having the adaptability and flexibility to navigate these times without feeling completely stressed out and overwhelmed is that skill on the softer side, which is going to take us in the long run.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely think there's, we heard it earlier about look at the behaviour and the consumer insight and then the technology will come. If you focus on the technology first, you can find yourself wayward. And that's not actually what we want to do. And Jensen, how are you feeling?
Well, I also agree. There are things that business fundamentals that would never change, no matter how the world changes. So the context of my team is a little bit different. I have my data scientists, I have behavioral scientists, I have my growth specialists, which are traditional marketing people, performance media people. If we think about a world with generative AI, machine learning, all these fancy terms, what we can see would happen is the talent are going to be more and more specialized. So imagine if you have So imagine the concept of data-driven marketing in itself is actually discriminative because I personally do know some world-class, wonderful brand marketing people, absolutely top-notch on earth, but they don't have any numerical skills. So if you ask them, hey, you need to be data-driven, they'll be like, I spent my past 20 years to be very, very good at this job, then you are now asking me to learn my data-driven skills. What? So what I try to do within my team is we need to break these silos. Even you have a very, very deep expertise on one topic, you need to find a way to explain to people. I have a data scientist, he keep on telling me, Jensen, this is so simple, it's just regression. Everybody knows regression. But he's actually a PhD in Princeton, so nobody knows regression, he does. So what we try to impose in the team is we have this internal gatekeeping process. Anytime scientists need to present any fact to another non-scientist stakeholder, we have these rules. The rule is, imagine if you have to explain this to your 6-year-old cousin, how would you do that? So if you fail the test, you cannot present to the business stakeholder. So, and likewise, we also ask our scientists to go to the marketing team, sit together with the social media operators and understand what is happening in the social media world. So if we keep on doing that, then we can try to remove the silos of these highly specialized people, and slowly they will feel, oh, actually, brand marketing people, they are not intimidating, they're actually approachable. And likewise, the brand people will be like, oh, these data scientists, they actually have a point. They have the ability to explain this to us. So breaking the silos between highly specialized people to me is how we build the future team. Because I have already given up the idea that I can outsmart my PhD data scientists because it's not going to happen. I just humbly request them to explain that to me, and I try to understand that. If I don't, I just go on YouTube and find something else.
Yeah, we've all got YouTube, Google,
Yep.
ChatGPT. Go on, Ashma.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think there's a very interesting concept with this guy, Alex Ohanian. He was the founder of Reddit. He said, which is the magic of compounding skills, which is exactly this point that you're talking about. Like, if you're a data scientist, but you are able to build some skills on business acumen and the commercial side, that is going to differentiate you from everyone else because you're the only person who's the data scientist, but you've built an additional skill on top of that. Similarly, if you're a brand marketer, but if you're able to go and understand, the nuances of FP&A process and finance, then you're the only person who can do that. And I've experienced this personally in my career as well. So the way that we are heading, as the silos are going to get more and more, if you're able to differentiate yourself by layering on skills which are typically not usually in your wheelhouse from somewhere else, you increasingly become more valued in organizations because you're able to break those silos and speak to different audiences in the language that they understand. And I think that concept of compounding skills is, I personally look at it as my career as like one of the North Stars, and I think it really, really helpful and for a lot of people who are in kind of different or technical roles to kind of learn on the other side what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. I think at this present moment in time, a marketer is never just a marketer.
Exactly.
We wear so many hats these days in the organisation. So I'm coming to my last questions, and then I'm going to open it up to the floor. But could you share instances when your team has aligned with business goals and what positive and measurable outcomes that you achieve? And Jensen, I'll come to you first on that one.
I think I'll anchor on the data scientist example I mentioned. So the approach I would like to use is we try to align an output of one person as an input of the next person, so they will produce something together. So the example I want to use is we try to build our in-house marketing mix modeling. So in human language, this model is going to explain what is the effect of even your offline advertising. You have a flyer, you have a PR campaign, you have a TV spot that is not click-based, and what is the exact ROI they generate to your business. So we use that as a foundation to a budget prediction model. So we build our annual media budget on top of that. So in the past, we have our data scientists to build that. So they have built this wonderful model. So, and if you think about the nature of the task, the model is going to inform you make $1 million decision. And you are asking your data scientists, which have planned zero, not even a dime of marketing budget in their entire life. So how can you convince the marketer and how can you convince the management that this is the right decision? So basically what we do was we use the previous approach. We try to break down the silos, and then we get the data scientists to talk to the marketing people, join the marketing budgeting meeting, and try to observe what are the questions they are asking. And then we alter the goal of the data scientists. We tell them, okay, build a model that answers business reality, meaning the model cannot say, put all this $10 billion into TV and we just drop all the digital channels, because this is a potential result that the modeled reality doesn't match the business reality. This is a potential result. So we just ask the data scientists, you need to understand that the model output needs to be in line with the business reality. And in return, we ask the marketing people, okay, now because we have done all these things, now the model result is not going to be crazy, it's going to be something that you guys are willing to buy. And then the output of the data scientists become the input of the marketing people, and then they can see these are the radical but not crazy results they can make. And we use it to alter some of our market on how they invest their $1 million of budget, and then we turn the market around from negative to positive in terms of profitability and in marketing cost of acquisition. So there's one example on how we align the teams, align the goals, break down the silos, and yield positive results.
Perfect. No, that makes perfect sense. And Ashima, from your perspective, have you got any examples of how you've utilised these sort of strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that my team manages is these seasonal campaigns that we do to contextualize our product offerings with the customer and giving them those kind of triggers to come and interact with the platform, engage with us, whether it is Halloween and how dating can come alive in Halloween, or,
Dressed up as a witch.
Exactly, spooky season. But yeah, so we do a lot of these creative thematic campaigns. But primarily, the goals of this campaign is to drive in-app engagement, and we want to drive more activity onto the platform. However, as everybody here would know, the kind of economic climate that we are in right now, it is, revenue has become a big priority. Also, we're a public company, so we have investor expectations that we have to meet. So we have this kind of calendar planned out, like couple of quarters, we align on these key moments, work with the regional teams, they have this spend allocated to amplify these in-app mechanics. And then finally, in the last couple of quarters, we hear from leadership that everything focuses on revenue.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to focus, increase the number of payers onto the platform. So it's like, okay, there goes my engagement plan out the window. But I think when I went through that process, it was that alignment, right? You realize that if you actually look into it, I was able to build with my team on those mechanics by just identifying opportunities and changing those engagement tactics from customer engagement to pushing for products and offerings that were revenue focused within that same scope. So if in the summer you are traveling, instead of saying, hey, our engagement campaign was like, find your date for the summer, it was like, why don't you switch on travel mode, which is accessible by on premium, so that you can start matching people anywhere in the world while you're traveling. So it required us to shift our strategy and our campaigns and our messaging and it really boiled down to understanding your premium and your revenue offering, understanding the audience fit for what users, those engagement and replacing those engagement mechanic with these revenue offerings that would align with those goals, right? So there was the business goal changed, the North Star changed, but when you're trying to turn things around in this whole speed, I didn't have the time to create a whole new strategy for revenue, and most of us kind of operate in these crazy timelines where you just can't start from the scratch.
Got to get
you
something done.
really have to turn the ship around. So it was more about finding those opportunities, and we actually, with those campaigns and just merchandising, there were no offers involved or anything. It was just positioning the right features at the right time to the customer segments, which were generating revenue for us. And yeah, we added millions of dollars in revenue and hit our earnings for the quarter. So that is exactly where I'm coming. Sometimes it's not about reinventing the wheel altogether. It's about finding those gaps and opportunities within spaces that you've already created, and just finding that audience, product, market fit that resonates, and then you have the results for you. So I think that's one of the very recent examples where we had to pivot to align with the business goals, and it worked out great.
Yeah, that's perfect. A great example, and actually one that I was going to ask you if you had any tangible results that you could share, but then you said you made billions of money.
Yeah, we made millions of dollars. Yes.
So,
not exactly, can't share how much, but because public company. But
Got
yes,
you.
yes, but enough for us to hit our goals and targets, which were for the quarter, which is exactly what we started with.
So for the bosses, they're happy.
Yes. I'll let you know after the end of the year review.
Yeah, your review, 360 coming over.
I'll let you know.
And Lorraine, last but not least.
Yeah, so at ACOM, our marketing teams are aligned with our growth strategy teams. So our regional, so I look after the Europe and India region, our regional marketing strategy is fundamentally aligned to that growth strategy in the business. So we don't have a challenge in terms of mapping where we are putting our energy from a marketing strategy point of view. But what I would say is really critical is that piece around understanding what the business objectives are, what good looks like to them, aligning your marketing objectives so that when you're having that narrative back on how that marketing strategy is performing, you're talking in their language and that they are bought into the effort that marketing strategy is delivering. And the data piece now, we are bombarded with data. We can evidence how our marketing strategy is performing. And the same piece I've learned there is you need to be able to articulate that in a way that your board understands.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we are hand in hand. The markets that we work in are not going to radically shift, so we're in quite a privileged position in that we can set the course for a year and sometimes up to 3 years in terms of our projects. So it's just making sure that you're marrying up your business objectives with your marketing objectives. And when we set those, we set our KPIs, which are also signed off, to make sure that there's no surprises along the way. So when your marketing team thinks they're performing really well and you have that narrative with the board, they're not like, well, that's not what we were expecting. So key milestones along the way. How are we doing against these objectives, and how can you have that conversation in a way that's meaningful to the business?
Perfect. That's great. So thank you.